living our faith when we grieve, when we are grieving. The first thing that comes to me is, first of all, to understand what our faith is. Faith is the belief in things not seen, but hoped for. And actually, what the actual verse says in Hebrews 11:1 is, faith is the substance of things not seen. Why does that matter? Well, if we're going to look at it from a science of mind perspective, how many substances are there? One. Consciousness itself is the substance of all things not seen, but hoped for. So faith then gets really simple. Do I believe that or not? Do I believe that there is one substance? Because if I do, then everything is that expressing in form. Everything. Even grief. Now, spiritually, in an infinite, eternal being, there can be no loss. Right? So that takes me to an understanding that the very idea of grief is a human thing. It's a human thing. It's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's not counter to spiritual. It's just a human thing. Right? We are meant to have human experiences, or we would be the divine expressing as something else. See, when we try to escape our humanity, I think we're saying that creation made a mistake, and we're going to fix it for them. Really? How's that working for you? If we weren't supposed to have a fully human experience, we'd be something else. When was the last time you were taking a walk and you looked at the grass and told it to have the experience of a tree? Oh, never? But yet somehow we think we're supposed to have an experience different than that of a human being. And I think that happens because we experience things that someone has taught us is bad. Right? Someone has taught us the idea of discomfort. That those things are something to avoid. Grief, as I have experienced it, is an incredible loving thing. I have never grieved someone or something that I did not love deeply. Never. I've celebrated some losses of things that in the moment I told myself I hated, and in the human realm I did hate them. Not proud of that, but I did. And when they left, I celebrated because I was stuck in this paradigm that said celebration is good, sadness bad. When my son passed away, I was sad. There was a part of me that was crushed. There was a part of me that experienced such a depth of emotional pain that I literally did not know how to breathe anymore. And a friend of mine, a ministerial colleague, who had lost a child, reached out to me and taught me how to breathe again. Because I didn't know. I mean, I literally, it was like nothing was working. Was that good or bad? Yes. and neither. It just was what it was. Is my son's death bad? No, it's his journey. It's not my journey. My journey was being his father. And before that, my journey was being his mother. Gets confusing as a transgender person. That was my journey. Ernest Holmes says this: when we create a demonstration, we must accept all that comes with it. See, so this idea that this should not be happening, you can stop lying to yourself anytime. Because it is happening. It's not about whether it should be or shouldn't be. It is. And it is happening because there is a belief in mind that law is acting upon to make it so. And part of our problem with grief, I think, is that we slip into duality. I want to blame my grief on somebody, on something. And the more deeply we grieve, the more we tend to want to blame it on somebody. Because we're stuck in it's wrong, it's bad. I shouldn't have to feel this way. And you don't. See, that's just it. You don't have to feel anyway. Thoughts create feelings. Feelings create urges. Urges lead to action. If you don't want to feel what you're feeling, the solution is very simple. Change the thought. If you think grieving is bad, and you don't want to feel bad, stop telling yourself that grieving is bad. It doesn't mean you won't feel grief, but you won't feel bad about it. And it's that simple. What if we acknowledged and celebrated the depth of our grief as evidence of how deeply we love? What if we did that? What does that change for you? What if we understood in our faith that while we're experiencing a loss in the human realm, nothing is lost in the spiritual realm? It's not an easy thing to tweak. I will share this with you. I was sitting by a lake where I taught Justin how to fish. And all of a sudden, something clicked. And the thought was, oh, he just went from being one place in the physical realm where I could find him to being every place all at once where I don't even have to look for him. Because that's what, and I still get goosebumps when I say that, because that's what happened when he dropped the bod. He went from being in one place to being every place, all at the same time. Now what am I grieving? And I still have moments where I grieve his physical presence. Where I actually grieve being annoyed by his incessant chatter. The boy could talk more than any human being I ever met. He could talk for days about nothing and never run out of energy. I miss. If you took him somewhere that was new to him and he was excited, you need to sit with it out of arm's length because he's gonna beat you to death the whole time. Oh! He just beat on you the whole time. I miss that. I miss being assaulted by his excitement. Oh well, it's still a part of me. I can miss it and still remember it and smile? What if the activity of grief isn't bad? What if it's every glorious memory of someone that you miss? What if then? Right? I think just like so many of the questions on that wheel are going to be answered, it's changing the lens we're looking through. How do I define grief? However I define grief will define how I experience that grief. It's just that simple. How I define anything will define how I experience it. We're in the midst of chaos in our country right now. Awesome! See, I'm one of those nut buckets that see it as awesome. Why? Chaos is creative. Something amazing is happening. And I don't need to see the finish line to know that. Right? Every woman that has given birth knows chaos is creative. Becoming pregnant is a chaotic experience if it's done well. I'm just saying. Yes, I went there. And I have, as an EMT, had the privilege of catching 3 babies as they were birthed. I quit saying after the first one that I got to birth. Men do not birth babies, we catch them. Women birth babies. Let's be really clear. But I've had the privilege of being there. And I've seen this insurmountable moment where a woman's body experiences medically more pain than she can medically bear and stay alive. And yet she does. And then this incomprehensible moment that the minute she looks at her child, all of that is like gone. And they're willing to do it again. Now, for those of us who have not had that experience, we can't possibly comprehend it. We can know about it, but we can't know it. We just can't. Right? And that's okay. And so your grief can't be known by anybody other than you. It just can't. Even, I have colleagues that have buried their children. So we share a commonality of type of experience. But none of us knows what the other one went through. We can't. We can't. And so I invite you to own whatever grief you're in. If it's grief about the country, if it's grief about where you have imagined the country is going that scares you, change that. You're grieving for something that hasn't even happened yet. Really? Pretty sure grief requires loss. Grief is after the fact. If you're grieving before, you're not living in this moment. And you are advocating your power to make the moment different. You are surrendering to a lie, and you get to, but you also get to do it different if you choose. Okay? So we teach a world that works for everyone. That means in the physical realm, we're all going to have to give up something. So there's going to be some grieving. Right? I can't say I want to be married and be in partnership and share my life with Deborah and then be mad if she comes home at night when I want to be alone. But there's got to be some give and take. If I want this beautiful marriage, having someone in the home with me is part of the deal. But we get it twisted up in our heads that I want a world that works for everybody as long as it's what I want. I really want to be inclusive with people who agree with me. As long as you agree with me, I'll include you. That's not inclusion. And so if you are living in any degree of selfishness about your walk on this earth, and you really choose to live faith that we teach here, you're going to do some grieving. Because duality, giving up duality means you have to grieve your idea of separation. It's all about me ceases to be. And you get to grieve that. And it's okay. And so I invite you to consider, and I'll wrap up with this, that living our faith and grief are hand in hand. Because everything that is unlike our faith will rise to the top to be reconciled. It will. And everything that gets reconciled to some aspect of you is a loss. And I invite you to let yourself grieve that so it can finish. Because if you don't, guess what you will do? You will go back and dig it up and sit with it and hold on to it, and you won't actually change anything. And may I just say, this is like a really crazy but cool experience to not have a clue what I'm going to talk about until that little wheel lands somewhere. But we're going to keep doing it. And so now I am going to turn this lectern over to Deborah for the end of our service. Thank you.